The Own Your Intuitive podcast is for the creatives, spiritual entrepreneurs, and light workers in the world. The shining ones who have been told to dim their light and stop believing in magic. I say screw that. The time to rise is now. To bring your gifts out into the world in a big way, creating a business that feeds your soul and your bank account. You are a magical being with the potential to change the world, one human at a time. The time for you to own your intuitive is now. Okay, humans who are listening to this podcast right now, you are in for an epic treat. And I say this with the greatest amount of love in my heart, because when I met today's guest, it was like love, like full love, like body love at first sight. Like she just makes you want to like lean in and have hours and hours of conversation. And not only is she this open and kind and loving and generous, but she is truly incredible at supporting you in one of the areas that most people don't feel like leaning in and snuggling into. So today I have Liza Witonis. Did I say your last name right?
You did. Good job.
Thank you, on the podcast today. And I can't wait to introduce you to her epic financial story and how she decided to do the work that she's doing today. So, hi, Liza.
Hi, sweetheart. It's so great to be here. We've had to reschedule a couple times, but divine timing, and today's the day. I'm so excited.
Today is the day. It's November 1st when we're recording, which feels like a juicy day in itself.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And so it's like fresh starts and new starts. And I think that by the time this podcast lands before the new year, right, mm-hmm. it's going to really inspire a bunch of people.
And a lot of people are ready at this time of the year too. You'd be surprised. Like, you'd think some people would be really stressed with the holidays coming and, you know, the change of the year and everything. But typically around financial stuff, they're like, oh boy, I'm really feeling it. I'm really ready. Let's do this. So, which is exciting. So it'll be perfect timing.
So a little segue. Thank you, Liza, for everybody listening. And they're like, okay, great. What exactly does this woman do at this point? So Liza,
who is she?
I know.
You
need to come in and introduce yourself and what you do.
Sure. So my name's Liza Witonis. I am a wealth coach. I'm a mama. I'm a wife. I'm a friend. I'm a dear soul sister to the lucky souls that are out there. And I help reshape your habits and your beliefs around money. And so that happens with the mindset, with the thoughts, with the behaviors, and also structurally and strategically with budgeting, making a money plan, and having a debt payoff plan. Can I dive right into my story?
Yeah, man. Let's go right into your story.
All right. So my husband and I, we started our journey 7 years ago. I was teaching at the time, working 2 part-time jobs. We had just married. We got married twice, which is a whole nother story for a whole nother day. But we had just married and we'd bought a house and we were going through the house buying process and just, you know, like staying afloat, but barely. I was definitely treading a lot of water at all times, and him as well. And it wasn't fun. Like, we could not talk about money at all. And it wasn't until the day that we received a piece of mail, and opened it, and it was just one of his student loans, just one payment for his student loans, and it was the same amount as our mortgage.
Can you share the amount?
I don't even know. I think it was like $800 for one payment. That doesn't include the escrow and all of that jazz for our mortgage. And it was that moment that was a huge wake up for both of us, because I didn't know what to do. First off, I was like, what do I do with this? Because if I just ignore this, not great things are going to happen, I'm sure. And we were just like entering, and we couldn't even talk about money. And he was scared too, you know, like he didn't talk about it at the time, but like he was afraid too. And so at that moment, we just kind of looked at each other and was like, we have to do something about this. And it was scary for us to put our first foot forward, but it was scarier for us to stick our head in the sand and say, nope, we're not going to look at this. And so, to add to that story, just my husband's student loans were over six figures. They were six figures in debt. I was five figures in debt with just student loans. Add a credit card of 10,000 in there, and then two cars and our mortgage. Over three, this amount does not include our mortgage. It was over $320,000 in debt at the age of 28, 29.
How many listeners can kind of relate to that?
Oh,
Like just that, I can feel the heaviness of that. Those
I'm
words.
short of breath. Can you feel?
Yeah, it's like, oh.
It's a lot, and we didn't know what to do, and it was scary as what.
And shame, right? Like it brings up
Embarrassment. Like, how
yeah.
did we get here? What did we do wrong? And here's the thing, folks, is that like my brothers and sisters and I were the first ones to have college degrees in her family, in my immediate family, and student loans were just what you do. There was no other option for us, and with mine, I think I had graduate and undergrad. I think it panned out to be like 70,000, 60,000, and that was just what you did. And it felt so unfair, truly. Like, to leave my undergraduate and to go teaching and to not even get paid $30,000 a year and still have like $40,000 in student loan debt, and just be like, well, I'm already behind the game before I even start.
Right.
It's defeating. It takes all the air out of your balloon. And on top of that, add that with a union, a partnership with somebody who you truly love, and the ability to not talk about money at the time. Neither of us.
That was a cumulative, that you guys just like, because in the beginning of a relationship, you talk about everything, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's almost like everything is like.
We didn't talk about money. I would talk about it, but his comfort level was not there. And what I learned later on was that nobody in his family talked about money. So it makes sense that he wouldn't. Why would he? He was never taught. Still to this day, nobody in his family talks about money, right?
So now he's breaking like ancestral and generational, patterns.
You got it. And that was what we did. So in that uncomfortable pit in the stomach, lump in the throat conversation with each other of like, what the hell do we do with this? Like this is not just something that we can sweep under the rug. We could, but later down on the road, it's going to come back to bite us. And so we invested in ourselves. We invested in a financial program. Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University was not ideal for us, but we needed to learn. Like, we needed to learn strategies. We needed to learn knowledge. We needed to know how to manage our money. And, my mom always talked about money, but it was always from a different intention, of like scarcity, like do this, never do that type of thing, like charge your credit card, but never charge more than what's in your savings, and, all of that jazz. And it was helpful, but not to the fullest degree, right? And so we did that, and he wasn't even able to attend like the class together. Like, we weren't. He worked in Massachusetts. It was like an hour drive for him. So by the time he got home, the class was already over. So we were so dedicated that I would attend the class. He would listen to the CD the next night. And the next night after that, we would then talk and do our homework. Like, talk about dedication, right? And so even though we weren't able to specifically talk about the money at the time, we both were putting in the energy and the effort to make the shift in our life. And the one thing that in that course, not one thing, there was a lot of strategies that I really took away from that and that I use in my coaching business now. But one thing that really changed my life was, you have the ability in every moment to change your family tree.
Shivers.
Mm-hmm. And so exactly what you were saying just a few minutes ago, like, we didn't have a family at the time. It was just us, but like, we were owning our last name, like the Witonis tree. Like, we could change the dynamic of not talking about money. We could change the point of it coming from scarcity, or as soon as you graduate from college being 10 feet under in debt just because, because that's just what happens. And so that really like lit a fire under us. And so within 3.5 years, we paid off over $225,000 in debt. We were officially debt-free in 6.5 years, and we paid off over $320,000 in debt. And only 60 of that came from the sale of our house. So this is work that we put forth, in releasing the chains of the debt and the shame, and our relationship on top of that has dramatically changed. The intimacy of us, the ability for us to talk about money, to have these conversations. Even now, our daughter's 4.5, with her in the room has been life-changing.
So I'm going to pause here because we're going to come back to the money story. Like, I giggled when you said something earlier because I'm like, she hasn't clearly listened to one of my podcasts before, because when you say I get married twice, but that's something for another day, I'm like, no, it's not. That's something for today, Liza.
I'm so focused on money. Oh, okay. So you want to know the story as to why? So
Yes.
My husband and I got engaged on Valentine's Day in 2012. And I was going through my graduate degree and was graduating in August that summer. And I was a teacher. I was a teacher, for 8 years before I started my business. And we set our date for June of 2000. No, it was, oh gosh, don't let my husband listen to this. Valentine's Day of 2011. And then we set our date for June 2012. And so my husband had an auntie, Louise, who our daughter is named after. And she had been battling pancreatic cancer for, bless her soul, 3 years. And we said if we needed to change the date that we would, and it was 3 weeks before I graduated from my graduate degree, my program, that we got the call, if you want auntie to be there, we need to have this wedding. And so we scrambled and planned a wedding in 3 weeks and had all of our immediate family right at her house on our back porch in Scarborough, Maine. And she was present for it. It was the night before I graduated with my graduate degree, and she passed 5 days after.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we kept our original date in June of 2012 to celebrate with friends and family. Some people at the wedding still didn't know that we were married. It was just like, it happened so quickly and everything. So we got to celebrate twice. And I told him my third wedding I wanted on the beach. So we'll see when that one comes.
So, question.
Yes.
Do you celebrate the original date or the June?
We do both.
You celebrate both. So what was the original date?
The original date is August 12th.
August 12th in June.
And then and then the second one was June 30th.
June 30th. Got you. All the reasons to have more like love relationship, close celebration.
Yes. Yeah. In this past year, we were able to go back to the place where we got married in June, which was super fun, and have dinner with our daughter. So it was just like so special, and everything. So
one of my favorite questions that I ask Liza is, so far we're getting a little bit of you and your husband's story. I would like to take it back, like back to your origin story. Where did Liza come from?
Oh, I love it. Yeah. So anything like what direction do you want me to bring it in?
Oh, it's whatever you say is what is meant to be said. So there's
whatever is meant to be said. Okay. Oh, this is fun. You get to know little Liza. Little Liza was a love. I'm a 2 Enneagram. I mean, there's I'm the Care Bearer that shines the hearts from her belly, as Tamara was sharing earlier. I don't know. When I was a little kid, I loved playing sports. I was definitely the tomboy type. I was wearing not skirts. I was wearing shorts, t-shirts, playing softball. And, I did play flute growing up too, and loved singing. And I really loved science. One of my fondest memories was being able to go to school early, which is crazy, in junior high at 4 o'clock in the morning, and being part of like this bird observation that was going on with some scientists that came to our school, and it was rainy and it was cold, but it was like, I remember the day so fondly of like being able to like see these nets in the woods and tracking all the information from it, coming in drenched and being there since 4 o'clock in the morning and just going throughout the school day. And so I am like a person of nature. I'm a person who loves science. If there's ever a water or, ocean show on Discovery Channel, like I'm glued in there. I'm watching it. Anything marine, I'm all for it. So as a child, it was super fun. Relationships with like girlfriends were not always the easiest for me. So I always gravitated towards men, and they were like my best friend always, and is still, even still, I've maintained one like girlfriend relationship, and then two men relationships, and that's just who I am. And so it's been really nice to kind of step into my 30s and kind of grow and show myself and be so confident in myself so that I can welcome in the soul sisters relationships of what I've been waiting for my whole life, which is super cool.
So now I have questions about that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Of course you do. I love it. Let's do it.
Right, because I think that this is something that is uncomfortable for a lot of people.
It is.
Leaning into having or even being vulnerable enough with people to have those attachments and intimacy. Would you say that the financial piece actually helped you create more intimacy in all relationships, including?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, here's the thing, once I had the confidence to be convicted in what it is that I really wanted in life, then I was able to actually feel that way vibrate throughout my other relationships. So I would say yes. Like we made choices on our debt payoff plan and story that did end up actually creating space from some relationships. And I'm not saying that it was all butterflies and rainbows. Like there was definitely some deep cuts that were very hurtful. But what it allowed me to do was to stand firmly in what was important with like my husband and my plan in life, and allowed me to really like solidify my values for the things that are most important in my life. And so it helped me stay in my lane, which I think is one of the hardest things to do financially because of comparisonitis. Even as a business owner, like comparing is one of it's not life threatening, but like it could be, it depending on how deep you go with yourself and the other people involved. And so it's like this has allowed me to just stand firmly in who I am and what it is that I want. And that's what we did on our financial journey and still are doing.
So I'm going backtracking a little bit to like how you even got into the educational system in the first place. Like what was the drive and motivation for that?
Yeah. So I'm a lover. I was such a lover. I knew since first grade that I wanted to be a teacher. And so when graduation came, they were like, oh, what are you going to be? And I was like, well, I guess I'll be a teacher. And what I love about teaching is the ability to like have that light bulb go off in children's lives. I taught second grade for 6 years and then kindergarten for 2, public and private. And I love watching and witnessing the students just work through their own way, but also guiding them along the way, and then seeing it go off and then having them just like take off with it. And so I think that right there has allowed me to witness that still in my coaching business.
And I'm getting this image too, because most of our stories that we tell ourselves are very childlike, especially where my money is concerned. It's like we are the grade 2 student when we come in. Like I know from my own personal money stories and things, like I get triggered like a grade 2-year-old when I'm, being told I can't have the things that I want, or it's not, and the spending cycle and, avoidance and all those kinds of things. It is like childlike in a way.
I agree. And that's like oftentimes where I start my clients. it is when what if I was a fly on the wall when you were a child? How was money discussed? How did it feel? What were the situations? And I call those imprints. Imprints are observations, conversations, experiences, and stories that have been told in your life. And look at us, like I'm 35, so think how many stories I've been told in the 35 years. And here's the thing, it's not just in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like these money stories are generational. I love that you said that because it's so true. There was a study out there. Have I shared this with you yet, Tamara, that about the mice and the cherry scent?
I don't know.
No? Okay. So there was a study where this male mouse was exposed to the scent of cherry. And after the fact that he was exposed to the scent of cherry, like the floor vibrated. And so it created fear. He was scared. And so anytime he smelled cherry from that point on, he had instant fear. Okay. This male mouse went then to produce an offspring, right? Guess what happened? The offspring,
yeah,
without even having that experience for itself, anytime it was exposed to cherry, had fear for some unknown reason. It was because of the experience of the dad. 6 generations.
Wow.
6 generations. This fear carried throughout to the scent of cherry. So can you imagine our grandparents? So what I want to release and like grant and give yourself permission for is like some of the emotions that you're feeling. I'm not saying like disown like the responsibility. I think we understand that, but like some of the sensations that we have about money just aren't ours. And if we don't allow ourselves to be aware of what we're actually feeling and tapping in, it starts with us. If we don't allow ourselves to really be aware of what we're actually feeling, and maybe not even why, but maybe sometimes why, then we're not able to work through it.
I'm just taken so strongly with this story because one of the greatest things that I study and share with my clients, right, is when we do the practice, you can't just think yourself out of your emotions. You can never think yourself out of your emotions, because the emotional body is what is actually creating your reality, right? And so this goes to show, like, just by simply creating a fear, right, which is, attaching to an emotion, they made that mouse not just smell cherry. The cherry was great, but they created an emotion. It was a negative emotion that created that fear generationally for six different little baby mice to feel the same way. But like, I just want to take this moment to say that you can flip that, right? Like, have the capacity to create positive emotions. That's what visualization is all about, right? Like, you don't just think of what you desire, especially where money is concerned. You need to attach an emotion to it, because that's what actually makes it your new reality. Like, it's the emotional body. I just wanted to say that really excited me as well.
We may have a 4-year-old assistant come in, just so you know. So it's all good. This is Mamapreneur world. Yeah, I agree though. Can I just add to that though? Because like, when our mind actually visualizes things, we're not like, our mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not in that visualization. And so we're actually creating our own little experience of reality for ourselves, whether it has happened or not in real life, which is kind of neat.
And it's so important, you guys, that when you're visualizing, that you're imagining the feeling that you would have in that visual, not just seeing a picture, really embodying the emotions of the experience. Because as this study just proved, it's the emotion that creates the actual long-term reality shift that you're looking for. Random question for Liza. You guys are not going to expect this one at all. This whole time I've watched Liza talk, I can see that she has a crystal in her hand.
Oh, I have too.
Do you? And I'm just curious, because I can hear you tap it, like when you put your hand down, I can hear
it. Oh, you can hear it tap it?
On the desk. So I'm like, all right, so we're going to find out what Liza has on her body today.
I might need help. I don't know. I think this one is like the champagne quartz potentially. No, not champagne. It's rainbow.
Spirit quartz?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I
Oh,
don't
you know,
know.
that looks like opalite.
Opalite. Okay,
That looks
perfect.
like opalite.
To
And those who
me,
are
like,
watching, if you're watching on YouTube and you can guess that, we can drop it in. But to me, that looks like opalite.
oh, perfect. And then I have my tourmaline, always just grounding for myself.
That's
It's
the one I
really,
noticed was the
yeah.
tourmaline, because it was in your palm and it was dark, and I was like,
Yeah. And it has this little perfect spot for my thumb to rub it, so it's like calming for me.
yes. And for just,
And
I do
my
the same
rose
thing.
quartz is right here.
I have selenite, and I have Lemurian seed crystal, and I have pyrite.
Yeah, I have more. I have more behind there somewhere. So
So so fun. So I want to go into your marriage right now for a second,
yeah, sure.
because there's a lot of listeners that are listening who are they're in the same boat. Again, my husband and I have been here. That was one of our first conversations where it's like, I can't get my husband to speak to me about money, and I don't know how to broach the conversation with my partner, whether it's your wife or your husband, or whichever gender that you are in
Whatever
a relationship
partnership
with.
union. Yeah.
So the question that I
Keep
have,
going. I'm gonna multitask here.
yes. The question that I have is, how did you engage in that conversation? And, what would have happened? And I know this is just a what if question, but like, if your husband hadn't been willing to do this work, would you be where you are today, do you think?
Oh, such a good question. And here's the other thing is like I've witnessed this with
Mm-hmm.
my clients as well. No, I wouldn't be in the same position. Personally, with my own personal journey, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Jointly, no. Mm-mm. So my undergrad would be paid off. I would be debt free, right? Like I would be managing my money and having a good relationship. But that partnership of us being able to team up and really tackle $320,000 together, no, that wouldn't have happened. And so it's like it's super vulnerable and it's scary to really tap into it. But what I love in the work that I get to do is the opportunity to find each other the same page.
Right.
And find the union the same page. And
Right.
so I would be on the same journey, but I'm not so sure our relationship would be as intimate, make as many gains as we would have made, like accomplish what we accomplished. Like what we discovered in this union, this partnership, and this commitment to this task and this goal was that we're a damn good team. And anything that we put our minds to, like, we can do it. And so from that point on, we're like, if we choose to do this, like, we're going to make it work. We just have to decide for ourselves.
So I'm going to ask this, like, because I thank you. Thank you. Right. The piece too was like the beginning conversation. So if people are listening right now and they're like, I don't even know how to broach the subject with my partner, I don't even know how to put it on the table, let alone, because you get into that hermit shame, hide, this is something you can't talk about. People will judge me, including my partner, whatever it is. And some people even go to the form of addiction, like they overspend, they hide their finances, they use it as like an emotional release, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the how do you broach the conversation?
Yeah, good question. So
and how did you broach? You can just
I'm gonna tell you, it's like it's scary as F. It's definitely, it's probably one of the hardest things that I had to do at that point, like the pit in the stomach, the lump in the throat, and to really, like, if you feel something fearful, both our mentors, Tamara and mine's, like, if something's scary for you, you got to go towards it. It's like, oh, okay. And it took time and grace and patience, even with all of those emotions. And so the first thing that we did, and this wasn't taught, like, this is why I started my own business, was because of this piece right here. The emotional part behind it, the habits and the behaviors behind it, like that mindset piece was not taught. Like that was completely brought on by us. And so we first approached it by having empathy for each other. And we just opened up the conversation of not specifically around money and our finances, but just how we grew up with money.
Mm-hmm.
and how money was talked about, how money was handled, how money was discussed, what were those imprints that we spoke about just a few minutes ago, so that we both understood where each other was coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And so his inability to talk and not talk about it wasn't a direct reflection for me of saying he doesn't want to talk to me about it, which was my mindset. After hearing his story of like money wasn't talked about, like they just took care of it. Like they didn't even talk about it between themselves. It wasn't witnessed, wasn't modeled. And so for me to understand that he wasn't able to communicate with that wasn't a dig to me or making me a victim. It was, oh, he just really doesn't have those skills yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so it created empathy on both ends, you know, in the scarcity mindset from my end of like, no, we need to have X and the, like, we have to talk about this. Like, I remember the grocery bill coming in every week. How much did you spend this week? That was the conversation, you know, and then having it be like $150, $200. What did you buy? Right? Like,
Yeah.
these were the conversations, real life, like as a child that I got to witness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then like from there, you know, just being like owning the fact that teachers don't make money before even starting my career, right? Like these are just little nuggets along the way. So I always have my clients start with like empathy. What are your first money memories, like Kate Northrup? But even like, don't just stop there, go through your life cycle. And so I love coaching and hearing that timeline with my clients so that I can understand where are the pockets of where the cycles are happening in patterns and why.
So you work with couples too?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
that was my next question, because you guys took a course together. So was that something that like one of you presented and both of you joined, or it was something you like sought out together because you knew it was something that you wanted to tackle together? Or
Yeah, good question. So I think I was the one who approached it first because what feminine energies are looking for security and safety. Like what we do is like we make sure everybody's okay, right? Like, and we make sure that we have a house, we have food, the house is clean, everybody has clothing, right? Like the safety, security. And I didn't feel safe, right? Like when I got that bill and I saw our finances and knew that even just a $40 bill for my student loan was a lot for me to even take on, an $800 bill for one student loan was like blowing me out of the water, like demolished, you know? And so so I approached it, and my husband's a researcher. He's a mechanical engineer. So I was like, this is now is a lot better, but like, this is what I think that we should do so that we know, because we don't know how to do this. And it took honesty and vulnerability to be able to say, we don't know and we need help and we want to learn. And so it was one of the first things that we got to learn together, which was nice. Mm-hmm.
So I have like so many questions because like I think that there's something that nobody talks about, which is the empowerment of knowing your numbers. Like there's a level of like, you know, without knowing the landscape, you can't actually tend the soil.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And to
Right?
tend the soil is hard work.
Can you share like
Mm-hmm.
for
I
you?
still have the book in which we used, and I will keep it for the rest of my life. That page in which we wrote everything down, because I remember the sensations. It was my stomach. You can talk about the chakras in my throat, like security and like, right, like being heard.
Worthiness and deserving is what
Exactly.
like
And
comes from the chakras. Yeah.
yeah, and so it's like I remember writing this down. A, how much debt we have, and B, what our expenses were, and what our income was. And I was like, well, I remember it stuck with me until the next class, and I was like, I don't even want to open this book. And to like open it up and to face it again, it was like, it was hard, but
Can I ask a really personal question here?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Was your expenses and debt that you were paying monthly greater than the income you had coming into your household at the time?
It's a good question. I'm a visual person. Let me visualize it. Hang on.
Because if you're looking at 800 and 800 plus all the other things.
Expenses is wants versus expenses. Expenses, no. Our lifestyle, yes.
Okay, so if we put under all those umbrellas, for the people who aren't in the space to segregate and understand the difference between the two, that the out money was greater than the in money when you started this process.
Because I wasn't even able, like there were some months where I wasn't able to even make my student loan payment. And that was $40, right? Like, it's like, okay. But our priorities, like, were we behind on our bills? No. Were we using credit cards to keep things balanced? No. Right. But when we had this huge breakup call, also, not a Freudian slip there, right? Like we were faced with the option to make some choices to really change the impact that we wanted to make. Lifestyle, wings every week, buying yarn because I love knitting, right? Like just all these little things. And so it was like, it was hard. It was hard to face all of that. And we just started with the expenses, and that was hard enough, let alone putting what we actually wanted in there.
Right. And so, because I'm thinking about every person that is listening, and did you feel like you were going without? Did you feel like you were,
That's a really good question. So this is something that we did, and also what I have my clients do, was we got super clear on the things that were really important to us. And so we were able to look at our values and say, what are the things that are really important to us? Is going out to wings every single week super important? No, it wasn't. Is knitting super important to us? No, it really wasn't. Like, it was just fun and social, and the wine that came with it and all of that, just the experience was more important than the actual like action. And so the values were what helped us decide where we were choosing our money. And I think this is a big belief about budgeting, is that it's all about cutting back, and that it's all about not being able to do certain things. And I really want to flip that switch on budgeting and call bullshit, because excuse me, but it's like budgeting actually allows you, the whole purpose of budgeting is to be intentional and purposeful with your money. And when you figure out what the values are, the things that are most important to you, then your budget will reflect that. And what actually creeps in guilt, shame, and embarrassment are things that are not in alignment with those values. And so paying $200 something for cable for us was pissing me off, because it wasn't a value of mine. It's not something that's super important to me. It is to my husband. So we came to an agreement. We still have cable, but we pay $50 for it, and that's all.
Right. Because
he needs his whatever he needs, right? Like, this is an agreement that we've come to, and we have a child now. Like, let's be honest. It just is what it is. She gets her 3 shows for the day, and she's done, But it's just like,
Disney is starting their channel soon. I'm sorry, I gotta say, for the whatever $15, the Disney channel is gonna be epic.
It's where it's at. And so it's like, once you figure out what those values are and the things that are most important to you, it's like a freight train. And here's the thing: things that were important to us on our journey when we first started out was paying cash for a Costa Rica trip. Our last trip that we're ever going to take, well, before having kids. Yeah, that was a priority for us while we were paying off debt. Okay? Right? Patagonia. Like, people know us. If they know us, they know that we're going to be wearing Patagonia. That has been like, and those seemed like pretty extravagant type of things to have in the budget, but like, I share those things because it's important to us.
Well, and I mean, even working with my coach, she talks about that. Like, what do you want? You need to have what you actually want.
What is it that you really want?
Yeah. Yeah. Because, you can't just budget, like, living in that scarcity mindset of like, I can't have anything, like nothing is available to me.
Well, in the law of attraction,
it's like dark ages.
Right. In law of attraction, if you only say that this is what you need,
yeah,
this is all that you're going to welcome in.
Well, let's talk about that because I think this is a big aha that came up for me in the last 6 months or so, and I'm going to share a little bit about it, and then I'd love to your take on this as well, which is like we are taught to only have what we need. We are taught, you don't need that. What do you really need? Is this really important? All this right from more kids, and the way I'm taught it is a need line, and we oftentimes just keep hitting that need line, just making it. What is it? What is that one saying? Which is, paycheck to paycheck. I'm living paycheck to paycheck because even when you make more money, for some reason it's just what you need. No matter what you do financially, it's just what you need. So where were you and how did you bust through that need line and be able
Good
to?
question. Well, I think it's the opportunity of like really weighing out the things that are most important to us. Right? Like, okay, let me use an example from just the other day. My daughter has been asking for 3 days to go to Dollar Tree. I don't know if you have a Dollar Tree up there. Everything in the store is $1, and it's all made in China. Like, it's just everything goes against my values, but she freaking loves it. So I'm like, whatever. Like, we'll empower her. So before we get there, I tell her, okay, you get to have 2 things. Like, this is what you have in your piggy bank. You have $2, so you can have 2 things. Go in. Elsa Frozen 2 is coming out in November, and she's freaking out about it. And so they had the new Frozen stuff out there. It automatically picked up a washcloth and a coloring book. I was like, okay, that's the 2 things. Do you want to go see if there's anything else? She goes, uh-huh. So she goes through and she's like, Mama, what about the she's obsessed with oh gosh, they just left me. The light up bracelets. What are they called? That you crack open and they're like they light up with the.
I know what you're talking about, but
yeah, okay, I just can't think of it right now. Glow in the dark sticks or whatever.
Glow sticks.
There we are. That is so silly. And so she found them and she's like, Mommy, I really want these. And I was like, okay, you know what your 2 things are, so you can choose which one's more important to me. She's like, I'm gonna get the coloring book later. That's not important to me right now. I'm gonna get these glow sticks and the washcloth. And so, like, at 4 years old, almost 4.5, she's able to decipher the things that are most important to you. And so when you're in that space of like paying off debt, having that money plan that feels really rocking to you, I don't want you just to stick to it. I want you to have another list of things that are going to feel good to you and other things that you are working towards. So when the surplus comes in, A, you're showing the universe that you're expecting it. B, you already have a plan for it so that it feels really good for you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, maybe it's we're not really saving. We're saving. I'm pregnant, so we're saving for the baby. So any surplus is going towards the baby right now. We know that's one of our highest priorities. And so I think, like witnessing the different seasons in life and how things shift and how it's not always going to be the same. And so after that, we have a trip in June. We're going to start saving for that. After that, it's like anything on the surplus is going to be going towards that or shifting things in the money plan that feels good to us to make that a priority from here on.
So
I'm not sure I answered your question.
No, it's good. So because I'm in my own head here and I'm thinking about like randomly all the different money things that are out there right now, and like, do you believe in the multiple bank accounts theory where you have different bank accounts for different things and you move money aside and do all that kind of stuff?
I do. That is just what we have had success in. And actually physically setting, we started off with having cash and literally having cash in our house, and it was the best feeling ever to have the cash and the envelopes, the Dave Ramsey envelope system, like to have those envelopes and things set aside. Now, realistically, with our daughter and family life and living in the woods, like we have bank accounts, we have club savings accounts that they have at our local credit union. And so we are able to set aside future spending for ourselves so that we don't have to stress when car registration comes up, life insurance comes up, like everything is set aside for that so that we can chunk it out and it's not as overwhelming for us. It's almost like a chipmunk. Like, would a chipmunk save all of its, or a squirrel, like save all of its acorns in one tree? No, like if the tree got cut down, the acorns would be like destroyed, right? And so they're going to save their acorns.
Squirrels saved their acorns in more than one tree.
I don't know if they do or not, but this is the analogy that I like to use.
It's a great analogy, Liza.
Scientifically based and how much nature, I'm going to have to find out if that is actually true. But realistically, like, what happened to that tree, right? Like,
Yeah.
what would happen if, like, it got too heavy with snow on it? That squirrel chipmunk screwed. So
True, sad squirrel not having any nuts.
yes, I'll have to find out if that's actually true.
I know. So
You're
how
the
many
first person who ever asked that.
Well,
I love it.
I like to ask questions.
I like it. I love it. I love
favorite.
it. But so I am a fan of having it. If not, then there are other ways that I work with my clients to really set up a system that feels good. So if they want to keep it just in one savings account, like, totally cool. Like, there's ways that we can work around that. But setting up for the future, for future spending, is one of the best ways to feel calm and feel safe and secure.
Right. So thinking about people, and I can hear some people and they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then, this podcast is going to end and they're going to be like,
what do I do?
well, not even what do I do, but they're going to get resistance, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to feel resistance to, so they'll get distracted away from, or they will, something will happen and it'll cost money, which is constantly what happens financially. Is when you go to do your money work, it's almost like the car breaks down, your roof like
I just had a client reach out to me, and I've been working with them for a month and a half, and they were like, it felt so good to have our savings, and it was so crummy to have it gone by like the 3rd of this past month, because they had car work that needed to be done. I was like, yes, and you can see it through that lens, but also you can see it how quickly that you built it up and how you can do it again, because now you have the prior knowledge and the experience that you're able to do it. So it's inevitable. Like, it's the I think you understand, like, when people hit that ceiling, that glass ceiling, it's self-sabotage.
Yep. Yeah. And what about the people who are like, oh, I love this, Liza, and I'm going to reach out to her and I'm going to do this work and I'm going to get my husband involved in all those kinds of things. And then, months go by and they don't even allow themselves the opportunity.
Well, here's the thing. The resistance is going to be there because we're comfortable in our crazy norm. Okay. I say crazy, like, lightly, but in the norm that actually doesn't feel good right now.
Right.
And as much as it doesn't feel good, it's comfortable. And that's the messed up part. And so it feels better. It's an illusion for us to stay in this uncomfortable norm that isn't working for us, in the cycle of anxiety and like stress and all of this that isn't working for us. It feels more comfortable for us to be there than to actually step off the path and go down that unmarked path, because we don't know what to expect. But when you understand the science of fear, that it's like that feeling, that resistance that you're actually feeling is your body is categorizing it as fear, but it's actually you just feel uncomfortable because you don't know what to expect. And this dates back to like caveman time, right? Like, if they didn't know something, what did they do? They ran and hid in their cave because it was life or death, right? If that saber-toothed tiger or some furry thing came around the corner and they didn't know what the heck it was, and it was like 30 times the size of them, like, they're running because it's either it's going to eat me or I'm going to protect myself.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. You're not going to die doing this work. Okay? Like, but even though we've been taught to feel that way, you're not going to die doing this work. But the sensation that you're feeling isn't fear. You're uncomfortable. And that's the resistance that you're feeling.
Well, and I'm getting a message to come through that either money has power over you, or you are taking your power back from money, right? Like in some way, because we are, I don't know, like, even with my clients, when people are deciding to work with mentors, when people are making big decisions and leaning in, right? It's like the first thing that we always hear, the very first thing is, I don't have it. It's not there. Da, da, da. They never see the alternate option.
Right.
One of the things that I actually say to my clients is, like, if I say my price, and this is really powerful, and I want to share it as an alternate thought for people, because there's a solution to every problem. There is always a solution to every problem. And like, where money's concerned, most people actually physically shut down. Like, they go into like you watch it happen. And so, you know, you can say, if you're a coach listening, if you're somebody who wants a coach or whatever is listening, and you want to work with Liza, or you want to work with me, and, you know, you're afraid of the money part. For me, what I actually tell people afterwards when they're like, I just can't do it. Oh my God, da-da-da. And they're like, I'm like, if you had a perfect plan, if you could actually get to that comfortable place and say, you know what about this? Is this an option? Could we do this instead?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? It's a conversation. It's not a shutdown.
Right. Right. And here's the thing, instead of saying I can't do it, if it's something that you really want to do, how can I figure this out for this to work for me? It's a game. Really? Like, that's all that money is. And we're the ones that attach the emotion to it because of our imprints, our stories, our beliefs, our habits. And so if we're able to approach the situations, whether it's investing in us or investing in something else, of like how it, if it is a value and a priority of yours, but most likely if you're on the call, it probably is, how can I figure this out? That's a question to ask rather than I can't. Right. Because I can't feels more comfortable, less scary than, ooh, I really actually want this. And so if we're able to actually just feel the feelings of us really desiring this thing, then how can I figure this out? How can I make this work?
So for those who are listening and they're getting off the call and they're like, okay, where do I start? What would be the first thing that you would say to them to just kind of have clarity over?
Yeah, I would say the values and their why. Like, why is this work so important? And what are the things that are most important to you? Like, that is one of my favorite things to do with my clients. I have a lot of favorite things that I do with them, but like to have them figure out and dive deep into the things in their lives that are super important, and then be able to say, okay, show me the money. Is it your money actually reflecting? Yeah. Is your money actually reflecting these things that are most important to you? If you're here having this conversation with me, most likely they probably are not. In some degree, they probably are, but in other degrees, they're not. And so now what do we get to do with this, right?
Have you ever heard of the law of polarity?
I feel like I have, actually.
So I just want to throw this in here because it was a game changer for me where my finances were concerned too, where you look at debt, like, and all you can see is your debt. All you can see is but the truth of polarity is like for every up there is a down, right? For every left there is a right. It is like whatever is in negative is available in positive. Like it's like that scale of polarity. And so what was a game changer for me was that if whatever I had in debt was in fact available to me of equal value in plus, if I was opening my eyes to see the possible ways in which I could bring that forth to my reality.
Yeah, and the other shift of like debt is to actually realize it's causing you to live below your means.
Can you clarify that for those listeners?
Yeah, so what that means is if you have $800 going towards debt, you're forced to live $800 out of your budget because of that debt.
Yeah.
But can you imagine when it's gone? That $800 gets to go back into your money plan. So why wouldn't you want it gone faster? Right?
Like, but it's like those listening to that, watching the YouTube, like she gets so excited. You just like are like a little kid. You're like, can you imagine? I'm like, yeah.
But it's true. Like, can you imagine what that feels like? Like $800 is a big freaking deal. That's a big deal. And so it's like, yeah, debt does. It's crummy. It doesn't feel great. It's sucky, but being in that space isn't going to make you take a step further. Right. And so flipping the switch of the polarity, law of polarity, right? Like if I can make this of what I have in debt and pay it off faster or what have you, or, put this money back into my budget so that I can repurpose it to things that are really the most important things to me. Yes. It's like a kid on Christmas morning.
I know. So I have a random question for you, which I ask everybody at the end because it's an important question for me as a book nerd. But if you could choose only one book, Liza, right now, just one that you would say was transformational in your journey, it could be any book for any journey. And whatever comes to mind is usually the right book for the listeners. But what book would you impart as like, this book was a game changer for me?
Tuesdays with Morrie.
I bought that book, but I haven't read it.
Oh, it's really good.
What is it about?
It's about this gentleman who visits this old man who's dying every Tuesday, and the old man gives like this like life lesson.
And
It's
what
an
made it
amazing
so
book.
impactful for you?
Um, it changed my perspective on a lot of different things, and
Mm.
the appreciation and gratitude really shined after that. Not that I didn't have it before, but it was just a really, really good book. I have it. That's one of the books I decluttered, and that's one of the books that I refuse to get rid of. Mm-hmm. 'Cause I'm like, I just like this book.
So I don't think I can get rid of any books anymore because my youngest, Karma, has looked at me and said, I believe that I'm going to have a used bookstore one day. So I need you to keep every book that you have so that I have things to stock my shelf with. And I was like,
Okay.
okay, that is now what is going to be happening in
Oh
my
my
world.
gosh, I love it.
Because I'm addicted to books anyway. I could like
I
lie
love
on them,
it.
smell them,
Hmm.
and just be with
I
them all.
know. I hear you. I hear you.
So as everybody's listening in there, like Liza, your story is so powerful because how, before I actually get the information from you, how did you make the switch from being a teacher into this work?
Yeah. My little angel daughter that you heard, my 4.5 year old assistant that came in, gave me the nice little swift kick. Amber Lilystrom is both Tamara and my mentor, but Amber used to live across the street from me. And I remember the day she told me, when you have that daughter, you're not going to want to go back to teaching. And I said, but what do you mean I'm a teacher? Own the identity the whole time through. But when that little girl entered this world, I knew there was no way I was going to have somebody else raise her for losing my whole paycheck plus an extra $200 to have somebody else raise her. There was no way. And so I just got super crafty and realized the gift in which we had in our Witonis household around money and the ability to really shift and change people's lives with it, and had the courage. It was scary, still is scary,
Yeah.
but I would do it all over again in a heartbeat just because I get to have these moments with this little girl and our future son here.
Yeah. I always say our stardust is found in our stories. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that that's very powerful. Thank you for sharing. And
Yeah,
if
thank
everybody is
you.
listening and they're like, wow, I want to pay off my debt and I want to learn my financial landscape and I need some Liza Witonis in my life because she really is like a care bear. Like truly, like you are just love vibration in all ways
Mm-hmm.
and all things.
Oh, thank you.
And so like think about that as being the field of energy that you
Mm-hmm.
are, entering into when you are doing, you
Yeah.
know, what's considered scary to have
Mm-hmm.
that inviting, cozy, safe container that is Liza's energy, holding that space with you.
Yeah.
Where can
Thank
they
you.
go to find?
Find me. And okay, so you're gonna see a theme here. My website is lizawitonis.com. I'm mostly found on Instagram at Liza Witonis. And my email is liza@lizawitonis.com. So if
Keep it
you're
simple.
interested, yeah, and you can reach out through my website too, to contact, but really a direct message or email is best, just so that we can hop on a call, free 20-minute call, just to talk where you are and to see if it's a fit for both of us and see how I can help you move forward. So it's scary, and I really want to honor that in its sacred space, but also knowing where I am now in just 6 years. Just
Yeah.
6 years. My life, 7 years. It's like the middle of November, I guess, 7 years. My life has completely changed, folks. And I want to provide that and put that on a silver platter for you because it's doable for you too.
I love you, Liza.
Yeah, I love you too, sweetie. Thank you so much. And thank you for the listeners for just sticking with us and having that courage to hold on, even though it's uncomfortable, but you're here for a reason and you're hearing this for a reason. So when you're ready, I'm here.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to everybody who listened. If this is impactful and you know this podcast is something that, friends, family, or anyone needs to hear, please share it, review, like, message us. We are here as your guides and your mentors and supporting you in any way that we can. And tune in next week for another incredible human sharing their story and their stardust with you.